With the continuation of the Blue Lock project after the U20 match, it came with the announcement of the new Igris League. Ego, now being the coach of Japan's U20 team, explains that his Diamonds in the Rough are tasked in choosing one of 5 league represented clubs in order for them to improve their abilities and skills, preparing them for the upcoming U20 World Cup, and to help decide who is worthy of making the cut in the top 21 player border. Isagi in the original story selected Bastard Munich due to his idol Noel Noa playing for that very same team. However, he did ponder with the idea of picking Manshine City, as England was the team that he'd been watching a lot recently at this time. So as you can guess in today's video, we tackled the scenario of what if Isagi chose Manshine City in the NEL. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The support is completely free and is greatly appreciated with the growth of this channel. Also be sure to join my Blue Lock Discord with the link down below. After our main character was approached by Bachelor with some encouraging and inspiring words, Isagi, upon further reflection, realizes what he severely lacks in his arsenal is the physique to compensate for his plays. At this point, he had the movement weapons necessary in order to get into the best spots to execute his direct shot, but what use is that formula when you have to rely on others to give you that ball? He has no individual offensive weapon to keep hold of the ball, so the best way to fix that issue is to tackle it head on. Isagi selects Manshine City and begins his new route in the story. Nagi seemed a bit annoyed. He wanted to dedicate his time to actually beating Isagi, but maybe that can still be achieved in a different way. Chosen and prepared, the selectors of this England-related club went through the whole way relative to their decision, which after this is where everyone of course has their introduction to the masters and the fellow U20 players of each club. Manshine was a much more positively enforcing environment compared to Bastard, but Isagi will never know that due to this scenario. Chris Prince in his original attitude is excited to see everyone, but he immediately identifies Isagi from the U20 match. It's not hard to imagine that Chris Prince knows who Isagi is, considering he does thorough research into developing each of his students' skills, and even the likes of Kaiser knows about Isagi from his winning goal. Chris Prince of course starts to inspect each of their bodies to assess what kind of player that they are. When it came to Isagi, he was identified as the Roindolta. The word essentially translates to space investigator or space interpreter, and is best used to define the effective role that anticipates when space opens up to make a goal scoring opportunity. A Roindolta's main function in a team is to drift infield and find pockets of space in which to thrive. A player who locates dangerous areas on the pitch and uses unoccupied space to create danger among opposition backlines. And much like Isagi, this type of forward are limited dribblers and are not characterized by their pace. Their first touch is very efficient and a huge contributor to their setup touches prior to scoring. Chris Prince starts asking everyone what the ideal versions of themselves are and what they seek to achieve. Of course, Chigiri, Ryo and Nagi give the same answers like the original. Nagi's answer, especially to what his ideal self is, surprises our protagonist a bit to know that he was so determined to have a win over him. Then when it came time for Isagi to answer that very same question, much like how he struggled to give a well thought out answer to Noel Noa's questions, he also lacked the proper response here. However, he mentioned his reasoning for selecting Manshine City over Bastard Munich was in regards to becoming more capable with ball possession and aim to be a better individual player than he currently is. Chris Prince appreciates that answer and the unintentional flattery of being picked over Noel Noa, and he begins his way in helping to improve Isagi's physical capabilities. This overall new path of training physical specs more so than reading the field for the time being doesn't make Isagi any different in terms of his ego type, since there's characters like Hiyori who are individually capable of keeping hold of the ball who are the exact same ego type as Isagi. Just thought I should specify that. I will go out on a limb here saying that with 2 weeks of preparation time, Isagi manages to go from an overall rank B player to a high rank A player, but Isagi still lacks the physical components that would make him one of the strongest or to help him be more dominant with ball possession or stealing. So how will he grow? Well, I acknowledge Chris Prince as one of the best masters. Whilst yes, his partial focus does come down to promoting his sponsored products or beating Noel Noa, he is phenomenally equipped in the knowledge in how to approach everyone's different types of playstyles, maximizing their bodies to best compensate for their levels of potential, and of course giving opportunities to players with the strongest ideals. Isagi has massive amounts of potential because, you know, he's super receptive to any amounts of data. Through rebuilding his nature, he's actually able to see more improvements in a shorter time frame compared to when he was on Bastard, thanks to the likes of Chris Prince and Agi's collaborative efforts to make Isagi Yuichi the ideal version of himself. So with 2 weeks of training under Chris and Agi, Isagi will reach the level of physicality he was at the beginning of the Ubers game, and that includes Chris Prince and Agi also helping Isagi develop his ambidexterity. When Isagi's focus is primarily on his body, it's likely that these improvements he's made during the NAL would be accelerated instead of his mental capacity. So the first game game that Isagi will of course play in is against Bastard Munich, which is the NEL's third live match. Through Isagi's ideal performing preference, he is placed as the offensive midfielder behind Agi, where his direct shot can thrive with Agi's help in making opportunities, whereas Nagi and Chigiri take the wings, and Reo plays as defensive midfielder once again. Outside of Isagi, everyone stays in the same positions as the original story, aside from the other defensive midfielder next to Reo, Driver, who is now benched. We then see the opposition being revealed. Munich still won their first game against Bartra with Kaiser and Noel Noa's combined efforts, and upon seeing Isagi, Kaiser presents a devilish smirk. He couldn't predict Isagi's choice in where he would train under, as it was by pure fortune that Isagi chose Bastard Munich in the original story for Kaiser to want Isagi to get in the way of his life. But now this is the only match that Kaiser has to crush Blue Lock's hero. The match commences, and with a much more Kaiser-centered team, Bastard quickly gains the upper hand through chemistry alone. However, Reo presents himself to be Bastard's biggest obstacle upon his improvement to his all-rounder body type and the further development of his chameleon-style offensive and defensive abilities. He does manage to steal the ball from an arrogant Ness to then start a Psy copy counter-attack. Reo still makes his Rin-inspired strike, which was saved by Gargamaro, so still in this story, Reo at first doesn't want to rely on Nagi anymore. Isagi had been watching the match unfold from the opposite end of the pitch. Being further upfield didn't allow him to as easily play on defense at the pace in which this match was going, so he needed to adapt. And he now is realizing the reason why his physique needs to be in top shape if he seeks to keep up the pace going up and down the field. And of course, much like the original, Isagi so far is also interested in Kaiser's way of playing. Thanks to him now being on the opposing team, he's not only wanting to keep his eyes on Kaiser through how he is playing, but he is also required to, as he is the biggest threat on Bastard as a new Gen 11 player, much like how Sai is. Chigiri then picks up the loose ball before Kaiser does, and in an easier manner than the original thanks to Isagi not being on the opposition, Chigiri scores with his new golden formula, the 44-degree Panther Snipe. It was an extremely impressive feat and showcases the rate of growth that Manshine City has had since the beginning of their training. With no Isagi to tease, Kaiser just makes his attack with Ness. However, who from Blue Lock is there to be the competition for our Blue Rose Emperor? Well, that's the thing. Without Isagi there, no one seems like an alternative choice to be a rival with. Kurina is now helping Kaiser to appeal to club offers, and both Yukimiya and Kunigami are still playing their own individual game as they did in the original, with no intent of making the team their own. But with Kurina's assistance, he actually forms a chemical reaction with Kaiser and Ness named Blue Moon Orbit, which refers to Ness and Kurina orbiting around Kaiser to deliver him passes with notable speed and freedom. This push upfield was frankly unreal. To include a reliable player like Kurina into the mix, the predictable passing formation of Ness and Kaiser has been upgraded for not only faster pacing, but also less predictable passing patterns. Before the last pass could be delivered to Kaiser, however, Isagi intercepts. His movements are much more refined and aggressive now, and he's keeping in mind the distance he has to make up from his offensive midfield position. He makes a pass towards Agi, who is further upfield for a counter push. Agi had made it quite clear the interest he has towards Nagi, but he also has an interest in Isagi. Even if he wasn't a quote rarer creature, his potential and high level of football IQ resonated in the Doctor, and by working together they could develop a chemical reaction where they allow each other's full potentials to be harnessed. Kaiser was slightly starstruck at this level of improvement, as it seemingly didn't cross his mind that this was possible from the time of the U20 game up until now. Bastard Munich players look to stop Isagi in his tracks, but with his now upgraded physique, Isagi is able to push through the defense without the need of passing as much, which in turn makes his attacks less predictable. But his charge comes to a halt when Yukimiya managed to steal the ball from Isagi with the use of his faster speed. Isagi may have improved, but he's not yet on the level of players who are more versatile in natural physical skill yet. Yukimiya pushes upfield and executes his street-style dribbling. Even with Kaiser in the prime position to score, Yukimiya paid no mind to him, which ended up being a reason why he loses the ball when Ryo shuts him down using Neo's defensive technique. The loose ball goes to Nagi, and now he can showcase what he's learnt. Much like his first push with Agi in the original, where he uses the zero reset turn and showcases that he's become a more capable dribbler, the final result actually doesn't have Yukimiya block Nagi's strike. Instead, Kaiser is the one to stop it. With the ball going out of bounds, Agi gives his same instructions to Nagi like the original, as Isagi watches and listens on from the side. He already knows how the team is one that focuses on presence and creation, but now this includes the genius of Adaptability's performance to provide solutions and input for Nagi's own creativity. Isagi is both the offensive midfielder and a crutch for Nagi's growth, not exactly providing Nagi with the ideas, but it allows Isagi to see the ideas Nagi has the potential to do himself with their chemical reaction. Although, Isagi doesn't wish to follow this structure, so only Nagi can get goals. He is also a vital component that plays as this team's space investigator, with assessing blind spots and being able to get into the best positions for his direct shot, in which he has trained thoroughly. So his presence needs to make a shift in this team's dynamic one way or another. With Chiguru's corner kick, Agi is able to make a flick pass towards Nagi, but Kaiser of course intercepts like the original, and while Isagi was trying to catch up with Kaiser as he goes up the field, he was paying close attention to Kaiser. Kaiser was moving in a way that to him was the ideal way of him playing. Every decision, every adjustment, every scanning of the field is how he should move when on and off the ball. Isagi's way of thinking, as we know, was way too slow comparatively to a lot of more physically impressive players like Rin, Shido, Baru, Nagi, and now even Kaiser. So the only way to adopt a playstyle more fitting to him is by replicating each and every aspect that he can do from Kaiser's demonstration. He was learning the fundamentals of metavision, which will shake this game's whole balance. What he did not anticipate, however, was Kaiser's own striking weapon. The leg swing speed he performed when he got the ball in range of the goal was not only impactful, but the magnitude of it made it even more obvious what kind of striker Kaiser actually is. Not even with a million years of training could Isagi ever think of doing a shot like Kaiser just did. He doesn't have the physicality for it, but everything else leading up to that strike seemed feasible. So if he put it into practice now combined with his better physicality, he could be on the track of accomplishing his now new ideal. With the game at 1-1, Isagi seeks to topple the favoritism of the genius, dethrone the emperor, and making Manshine City center around his vision. He shall lay the path for his creation by making his presence undeniable. I hope you all enjoyed part 1 of this new What If series. If you want to see part 2, show your support once again by hitting that like and subscribe button to the channel. Also, before you go, I have a form in which you can fill out for an upcoming hot takes video where I go through your guys' hottest takes. And hey, if you all submit enough hot takes, maybe I'll do 2 parts. So check out the Google form in the description and submit your amazing hot takes. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and until next time, peace.